collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, an Irish literature night to mark Bloomsday.
I really don't know how we've had 4 Nobel Prize winners. Joyce himself was the most famous writer who didn't win the Nobel Prize, possibly because his subject matter was a little sensitive at the time.
A campaign calling for everyone to say no to plastic bags.
This is the main problem. This is the source of the pollution from the plastic bags. It's the supermarkets.
And we'll hear about the work of the Technical Committee for Cultural Heritage, who've just restored the Othello Tower on the ramparts of Famagusta.
In the beginning was something else, accusing each other who destroyed and who destroyed and who destroyed more, and a lot of money were spent in publications, in propaganda, and Greek Cyprus and Turkish Cyprus confronting international fora about the catastrophes happening, and I noticed that through this way we are achieving nothing.
If you're Irish, you'll know that the 16th of June is a very significant day. It's being marked here in Cyprus with a special event at the Solonian Bookshop in Nicosia. It's all organised by the Irish Embassy, and with me is the Irish Ambassador, Nicholas Twist. Nicholas, it's something that, as I said, for Irish people is very significant. For those of us who perhaps aren't really sure what it's all about, tell us about Bloomsday.
Well, it's developed into a global festival. Originally, Leopold Bloom is the main character in James Joyce's novel Ulysses, and modelled on the Odyssey, Bloom wanders around Dublin on the 16th of June 1904. And over the years, it's grown into a major festival. People in Dublin dress up in Edwardian costumes. They eat kidneys in their jackets, all the sorts of things that Bloom does in the course of his day and his reflections. So now, almost everywhere, wherever the green is worn, we dress up. Well, I'll wear a variety of hats to represent Leopold Bloom and Blazes Boylan, his nemesis, who is having an affair with his wife, Molly, who is the same as Penelope in the Odyssey, but not quite as loyal. So it's really a fun occasion.
And how are you going to mark it here in Cyprus? I know you've got some readings, and you're including not just James Joyce.
No, what we're doing, as it happens, Bloomsday is the 16th of June, but it's the 150th anniversary of the Irish poet W.B. Yeats on the 13th of June. So the two come together nicely, and we'll be celebrating both. I'll do a short presentation, but we also have Irene Cotter playing the harp, and she will play tunes associated. She'll do Down by the Sally Gardens, which was written by Yeats, and The Meeting of the Waters, which is mentioned in Ulysses. So it'll be a really nice occasion there. And we have an actress, Elena Sava, who will read some of the poems by both authors. So it'll really come together nicely. And then at the end of it, of course, to mark the occasion properly, we won't have kidneys in their jackets, but we will have Irish cheese, Irish whiskey, Irish stout, and it'll be quite a jolly event.
It sounds like it's going to be a fabulous evening. Do explain to me how it is that Ireland has produced so many literary giants, and musical ones for that matter.
I really don't know how we've had 4 Nobel Prize winners. Joyce himself was the most famous writer who didn't win the Nobel Prize, possibly because his subject matter was a little sensitive at the time. But they say of the Irish that all our wars are merry and all our songs are sad. I don't know if that's quite true, but I prefer to say that we're putting the joy into Joyce.
And you've got the extracts from some of these works. Because it's happening at the Solonian Bookshop, I'm sure they've got a lot of these works in stock as well. How much do you think that the average person, particularly here in Cyprus, knows about the works that you're going to be reading and talking about?
Possibly not as much as I would like, but I think they have a very good grounding because they'd be familiar with Homer and the Odyssey and the Iliad and so on. So they would see the structure that Joyce used when he was writing Ulysses, and then he removed the scaffolding, as it were, so you don't see it in the printed text, but it's there in the background, and I think Cypriots are ready for Joyce.
Well, they're certainly going to get a dose of it on Bloomsday, which is, of course, the 16th of June. And do join them all at 7:30 at the Solonian Bookshop in Nicosia.
He Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven by W.B. Yeats. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.
Elena Sava reciting W.B. Yeats, and that will be part of the Irish Literature Night next week.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
Well, as we mentioned on the programme a few weeks ago when we spoke to Margriet Auken in Strasbourg, she of course is the MEP who steered the legislation on plastic bags through the EU Parliament. We do know that on average Cypriots use a minimum of 125 plastic bags a year. To mark World Environment Day, the Institute for the Environment and Sustainable Development had an event with the slogan, "We say no to plastic bags." Their chairman is Dr. Maria Dodo. Maria, how did that event go? Because people in Cyprus, unfortunately, do seem to love as many plastic bags as they can get their hands on.
I am glad to say that it went well. You know, speaking to people in the streets and trying to inform them, they seem very willing to accept this. And they were making, bad comments against the use of plastic bags.
But yet if you go to a supermarket checkout, you see people putting one or two items in a bag and then taking another bag. I mean, how are you going to stop this, in a sense, reliance on plastic bags?
This is the main problem. This is the source of the pollution from the plastic bags, is the supermarkets. Plastic bags are given free, they are easy to carry, so people have a tendency not only to use them to carry their goods from the supermarket, but also to use them at home, in the dustbin and in other things. The way to tackle that, I think, is try to make a campaign towards the supermarkets. There are now two big supermarkets in Cyprus that they don't give you any plastic bag. So what we intend is at the second stage to come in contact with the other supermarkets and try to bring them together and decide that they will charge the bags. In this way, the volume of the volume per person will reduce.
And yet there are freely available so many reusable bags. All right, sometimes you perhaps buy them, but very often they're given away these days, and I think you were giving away reusable bags at your event.
Yeah.
It's so easy to take your own bag with you to the supermarket.
It's so easy, but it's not very practicable. When you go in the supermarket, you buy many things, maybe you need more bags. So just carrying one bag in the supermarket or a couple of bags may not be enough to carry your things. But I suppose now with the new legislation of EU that it forces member states to take measures against the use of plastic bag, this will have a result. People usually don't think so much of the pollution until you make them aware of it, and also you make them pay for it.
So your hope is obviously that Cyprus will come on board. We have to reduce the use of plastic bags per person. The aim is for down to 90 per year by 2018 and to 40 by 2024. Do you think that's achievable in Cyprus?
I think it is. I think it is because of the experience we have with these very large two stores, that you go there and either you take your bag or you don't use a bag. Sometimes when I buy from these stores, I put all my things in the trolley, I carry them in the car in a box, and then from the box I carry them home without using any bag at all. And I see many people doing that.
Right, but then you did mention earlier that some people want the carrier bags from the supermarkets to use to line their dustbins. Now, how do we solve that problem? Because at the moment there doesn't seem to be an alternative to how you put your rubbish out.
The first thing is to charge the bag, but not just 2 cents. Charge the bag, 15 cents. So people, if they need the bag, they really pay the 15 cents. But if they don't, they will not. And they will not then buy a bag at a higher price in order to use it in the dustbin. Of course, this should be combined with the legislation for the charges of the solid waste to pay as you throw.
Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is there an alternative to plastic bags to contain your rubbish before you put it out for collection?
For the rubbish bag, I don't think there is at the moment, because if you are going to buy biodegradable bags, they are very expensive.
And biodegradable bags actually aren't biodegradable. Biodegradable bags simply turn into plastic snow, which never disappears. It just gets so small you can't see it. So it's not really any better. In fact, it's worse, I would suggest, for the environment.
If they are from a material that is biodegradable, since all the biodegradable matter can be used in order to produce energy or, in another form of...
But we don't make energy in Cyprus from our refuse, do we? It's not financially viable because we're too small.
We do. Of course, not from the solid waste, the household organic matter, but from the waste of the farms and the pickeries. Lately, there are private interests, and they have installed several treatments, plants, and they collect from the restaurants, from the pickeries, all this, and we produce energy. So, in fact, there is a tendency now in Cyprus to do this. And I wanted to add something for the plastic bags. I am a permanent member of an environmental committee who permits issues to projects. And I have seen lately a lot of interest from people to obtain a license to install plants that they can use even the plastic to produce biofuel, because by law you have to put a certain percentage of your gas you use in the car must come from biofuel. And now there is a tendency to do this, and these ways also include plastic.
Let's talk very briefly, if we can, about the work of the Institute for the Environment and Sustainable Development. When was it formed and what actually does it do?
The Institute was formed about 4 years ago by RISI, the Democratic Rally Party, in order to advise the party on policy matters. The way it works is that the Institute advises the party, not the party says to the Institute what policy to adopt. And this is the right way to enforce and develop appropriate legislations. The Institute tried to bring the politicians to inform the public of us on issues of environment and make them aware, but also to bring the public in contact with the politicians. So we organize a lot of events during which we invite politicians and scientists, of course, to speak on the matter, and then we have like a public participation, people asking questions, in order to develop the right legislation for the matter, or to promote the right projects. The Institute is not strictly dealing with the matters of environment in a sense people think. We also deal with a variety of things. Like, for example, the last one, the event we organized, it goes on the bureaucracy, how it stops the development of the
business sector.
Of the business. Yes, we had an event on the organic
farming.
Organic farming, yes. Organic farming, yes. The use of organic goods and the good on the health. We had events on energy, or renewable energy, on the management of the wastes.
So you're
we
basically
organize
trying
it
to bring the political party closer to the public?
To develop the right policies. And of course, if there is matters that they, in our everyday life, that creates environmental problems, we try also to tell our opinion on it.
Well, that's Dr. Maria Dodo, who's head of the Institute for the Environment and Sustainable Development, and of course the event on plastic bags and the attempt to reduce our use of them in Cyprus is ongoing.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
The Othello Tower and Citadel in Famagusta is to be reopened to the public on July the 2nd. It's after a restoration carried out by the Technical Committee on Cultural Heritage, the European Commission and the United Nations Development Programme Partnership for the Future. Now, the Greek Cypriot representative on the technical committee is Tagis Hadjidimitriou. Tagis, first of all, this is very exciting. The Othello Tower is something that's, in a sense, at the heart of, well, Cyprus' connection with Shakespeare, for a start, and I know that the opening is going to feature a rendition of Othello actually at the tower. How do you feel about it?
It's really a great moment from the technical committee, for all our collaborators, that we have accomplished this great duty and responsibility, not only to support, because this was in the beginning in our program, but to make a very serious work for the protection and preservation of the monument. As you mentioned, Othello Tower is connected with the Shakespeare, and not only Shakespeare, with Verdi. There is also an opera about, and through these great monuments in literature, the monument is well known all over the world. But I have to add that the walls of Famagusta are of the most important Venetian monuments in the Mediterranean.
What sort of state of repair was it in?
Yes.
How much work had to be carried out?
Look,
because some of these monuments really have fallen into terrible disrepair.
Yes, and really, from the very first moment the technical committee was created, we faced all the monuments as one unit, I can say, and one target, not something belonging to the one side or to the other. And we gave great value and priority to the Othello Tower, because when we visited it, we saw stones collapsing, and our responsibility was great. So we start from the very first period, first to take the decision, then to put it in the list, third to start a study about this fortification, medieval fortification, with experts came funded by European Union. And then we came to the stage of the list to be approved and tenders to be asked for the designs, and after the designs, tenders for contractors. This it was a procedure, took to us about 5 years.
So it's been a long haul, but you've got now the result at the end of it.
Yes.
When this isn't the first monument, of course, we'll talk about some of the others, but when you're restoring ancient monuments, how important is it to make use of modern technology, but to try and restore them, in a sense, with the way they were built. If you look at the Lake Doña, for example, I can remember that they used the materials that were originally used. So, traditional things. Is it difficult to find the workmen to do it the way it used to be done?
The experts, they have the first role in the restoration of the monument. So everything done in Othello Tower, and we see now we speak about Othello Tower. We shall expand our work to Martinengo, which is one of the most important medieval fortifications in the world, and Ravelin Gate. And in a third stage, we shall work on the walls between the Arsenal and the Othello. So, in our mind, there is a global approach of the walls of Famagusta.
So this is really just the first stage, the Othello Tower? This is the first stage,
but in the meantime, we enter in the second and third stage, so very soon in the future we shall have developments on the other side. But to speak about the work done now, archaeologists, experts followed closely what material was going to use, because in the meantime excavation took place and new findings appear in the monument. It was really a great effort, and I can add that in some of the cases confusion was created. How shall we deal? How shall we overcome all difficulties? Then the research of the stones, the proper stones.
And where did the stone come from?
The stones, there were stones from the area were kept in the old Famagusta, and we took them from there. The second thing, we tried to find the quarry from where the stones were brought to build up, and we found the quarry. So it was a very, very careful work in the details, not to touch, not to change the character, or even to give the impression that something new is happening. Of course, some of the stones are looking now more white than the others, but this is because of the time passing.
And weathering will, over the years,
they will take the same color, but these are stones of the same character, and the material used for the roof also was discussed seriously. A lot of laboratory work took place. Believe me, the experts gave us a great trouble waiting to see the whole thing going to finish, and passing from postponement to postponement to meet the obligations according to the experts.
Let's talk a little, if we may, about the more general work of the technical committee. We said that this is certainly not the only project. How would you sum up the importance to both sides in Cyprus to see that the other side is helping them to restore what is, let's face it, the heritage of all of Cyprus?
The heritage of the whole of Cyprus, the heritage of Mediterranean, the heritage of Europe, the heritage of the world.
True.
So what we managed in the committee, perhaps it was the first thing we discussed, that we shall change the approach of the cultural heritage from the confrontational field and situation to the cooperation.
Because I think in the very early days the idea was that you pick one in the north and one in the south, and you've got to be equal and all of this.
No, in the beginning was something else, accusing each other who destroyed and who destroyed and who destroyed more, and a lot of money were spent in publications, in propaganda, and Greek Cyprus and Turkish Cyprus confronting international fora about the catastrophes happening. So, and this it was something I passed it even myself, this experience, and I noticed that through this way we are achieving nothing, perhaps a resolution somewhere without any value for the savior of the cultural heritage, and that we had to change minded approach to put in the center the cooperation for the protection of the cultural heritage. And this, we put it from the beginning, that as a common target for Greek and Turkish Cypriot for the common cultural heritage, whether it is a church or a mosque or in the north or in the south, and we face the cultural heritage all over Cyprus without dividing line. So we never, of course, we are careful not to provoke, not to give any misunderstanding that about what we are doing and how we face the whole thing. And we take care about the sensitivities, both of us, about our sensitivities. So it was never a decision, one in the north and one in the south. We have the list. We have a list, and actually the first list was about 40 monuments, 26 churches or other archaeological sites, and 14 mosques or other. So we never took the arithmetical, mathematical approach of the issue, and I have to praise this way of facing the problem of the cultural heritage, because it opened to us an open road to work in this direction.
And for cooperation, of course,
yes, of course. We achieved this cooperation. Of course, we were obliged to have new experiences, how to communicate, the language of cooperation, the creation of trust between the members of the committee, and I can add the word a sincere approach. And so everybody in the committee to know that we have nothing back in our mind, that what we say there is valid.
No hidden agendas. And we should say as well that...
not at all.
I think that since 2012, over 6.5 million of European Union funds have been provided to the technical committee.
Actually, up to now, we're spent, I think, about Othello, it's about 800,000 euros. The rest, the money we shall need in the future, of course, it will be something, this will be distributed in a series of years. Not immediately.
And over the other projects that you said.
No, it's about 1.5 million for future activities. But in our the next program with the wars of Famagusta will be another approximately 900,000 euros. So this is the figures I have in mind. But of course, I think that as Othello Tower and Famagusta wars are of the most important monuments of the island and in the world, it will be well received by everybody. Because I have in mind that the interest was indicated not only by Italians, experts in this field, and by Europa Nostra and other organizations interested. And in one case, they visited with us the place following the developments of the world. I think that this will be a very positive thing for the committee, which will facilitate us and for our future designs.
Well, that's all so exciting. That is an invitation to attend the opening of the Othello Tower and Citadel in Famagusta. It's happening on the 2nd of July. And we've been talking to Tagis Hadjidimitriou from the Technical Committee on Cultural Heritage here in Cyprus. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.